Yes, it is. Great. Okay, and when you all are ready, you can bring up our intro slide, and I will kick us off. Do I need to do that? Maybe I need to do that. Nope. Give us just a minute, folks. Getting this started. Team, is there anything we can do? Here we go. Wonderful. Okay. Hi, everyone. Want to introduce myself. My name is Joe Michaels. You just heard I'm Chief Revenue Officer at HaptX. Appreciate you coming at the end of the day to this session. Always love talking about this topic, haptics, the Enterprise Metaverse. And I wanted, before I get started, let you know two kind of housekeeping items. Number one, we are at booth 113, and we have our HaptX Gloves DK2 for you to go try. It's hard to squeeze in and try it. It's been very popular, I'm happy to say, but please try. We'd love for you to give it a shot. Also, at the end of this session, I am going to debut a video we've been working on for a while about HaptX Gloves DK2. I'll play it at the very end, and you're the first folks to see it anywhere, so thank you for watching it. Finally, if you want to follow me or HaptX on social media, you can see the addresses of Twitter and LinkedIn there. Love to have you stay in touch with us. So I named this talk, You Can't Touch This, Incorporating Haptics in the Enterprise Metaverse. Some of you who are old enough will will get the reference to the title, You Can't Touch This. I took some inspiration from a world-famous rap star in the 1990s, MC Hammer. And he was boasting when he, by the way, this is a guy who sold 18 million albums and made it to #1 on one of the Billboard charts. And it was all on the back of his song, You Can't Touch This. Okay, he wore parachute pants and he danced way better than I ever could. And, 18 million albums can't be wrong. And when he said, you can't touch this, it was a boast. He was saying my beats and my rhymes are so dope and fresh and fly and all the words he used that you can't touch them. And so what I want to point out is in the rap world, that removing touch feedback from your environment may be a path to success. In the Enterprise Metaverse, it's the opposite. And that's what we want to talk about today. Touch, as you absolutely know in your heart, is something that we use to connect with other human beings. It's something from the moment that we're born. We use to know what feels good, what feels bad, what feels real, and touch is important. And I think the very best way, here's something I love to show when I talk to people, is a great way to understand the importance of touch. This is an experiment performed in Sweden, and it starts with a pretty simple request. Subject, would you please light a match? And watch how easily she does it. Done, right? Now, the cool aspect of the experiment is, what would it be like if we anesthetized her hand? And if you don't like needles, I'll encourage you to look away for a second. But he's basically, the researcher is removing her sense of touch. She will have her eyesight, she will have control of her muscles, but she will not have any tactile or force feedback in her hand. And I just want you to watch what they learned in Sweden happens when you take away someone's sense of touch. So she does it. She eventually gets there. But how much harder was it than it needed to be? Because that fundamental sensory experience was removed from this subject. And that gives you just a wonderful little sense of how important touch is to us. Now, the place that I think touch is important that you may not be thinking about is in the metaverse. the next revolutionary computing paradigm. XR, we like to think of it. But I want to just map it out for you. Let's look back at the last several decades of computing paradigms, okay? So we started in the 60s with enterprise computers, and we moved to home computers and PCs and Macs and laptops, and then the internet and smartphones. With each passing decade, each of these paradigms is getting more connected, more processing power, more immersive, more engaging, more social, more persistent. What I'm hoping that you will see here is a pattern that leads you to the inevitability that the next great computing paradigm is all of those things. It's the metaverse. And this is why we're all here at this conference. And this is where touch is so important. And let me tell you HaptX's vision. Our vision as a company is a metaverse that is full of virtual and mixed reality environments with the sensory richness of real life. The sensory richness of real life. That's what we're all about. And so I want to talk about the last decade that we've been working on this and some of the things that we've done and we've learned in pursuit of the sensory richness of real life in virtual environments. So we started our company in 2012. And less than a year later, all the great ideas that our founders had got put down in intellectual property filings, there was an ambitious vision, even back then, for a full-body, fully immersive system. But we had to chop it into parts. And so in 2015, we had our first exoskeleton, and this was the first one we know of that was a lower body, mobility walking exoskeleton. So this was something that it looked terrifying, and frankly, we stopped work on it after a while because we knew that if someone made the wrong move, they could have their legs ripped off. So we stopped the work on that, and we went into other aspects of our vision. And in 2016, we had this big, it doesn't look big in this image, but it was almost a half refrigerator-sized device. Some of you may have tried it. You stick your hand into it, and you got tactile and thermal feedback, and it was wonderful. We were invited to the Sundance Film Festival to show it off. It was very well received. Then we moved into our first glove in 2017, and then we had our first development kit in 2018, which was commercialized. And in 2020, we were funded by the National Robotics Initiative to the US government to collaborate with 2 universities on a full-body force feedback system called ForceBot. And then last year, we had our first ever glove product that we could commercially sell to our customers, the HaptX Gloves DK2. And that's what you can try here at the show. So, I mean, this has just been 10 years of trying to attack the problem bit by bit. And it's been a great ride. And I'll tell you, we've been judged. We've been reviewed by some pretty harsh critics. And I'm happy to tell you that generally they agree. The reviews are in, and they're good. That we really have become the leader in the haptic space, it's thrilling. Everyone from Jeff Bezos to Adam Savage from Mythbusters to the VR press and the mainstream press, they've said really kind things about our tech, which we're very grateful for. And I think maybe the best review of all, the best thing that we ever received was right here in this building last year in November at the 2021 Augie Awards at the end of AWE USA. Niantic was named the very best AR experience at the entire show, and of hundreds of vendors, we were named the very best VR experience, which was a thrill and something that I'll never forget, accepting that award here at this stage. Thank you, AWE. So I don't want to go too much into our product because I have some other things I really want to talk about, but as a very brief description, our HaptX Gloves DK2 is what we call true contact haptics. This is on the realistic side of haptic feedback, where you can actually feel virtual objects as if they're real. And I contrast that to other technologies which are more symbolic. They're more suggestive that you might be near something that you're touching. You might be feeling it generally. We want you to feel like you can actually touch and hold objects, and that's what we're shooting for with the DK2. And we have a combination of tactile feedback, force feedback, and motion tracking that is unique. So we hope you'll come try that. It wouldn't be a presentation by Joe Michaels of Haptix if I didn't talk about robotics for 1 second. It's not a robotics show, this is a VR show. But I have to tell you, there's something super cool about using our gloves to control robot hands from a distance. It's something we've done for a few years now, and it's been incredibly exciting and successful. That was what Jeff Bezos was trying when he gave us a good review. So enough about me, enough about HaptX, let's talk about you. Let's say you're building an application for your Enterprise Metaverse, and you're trying to decide whether Haptics makes sense. Chances are, if you're like many of the people here in the audience, you have some kind of training application. That is a very popular one these days. So when does it make sense to add haptics? Well, let me talk about the things that I've learned in that sense. A very popular application for the Enterprise Metaverse right now is soft skills. So Walmart is training their greeters to deal with Black Friday madness, or interviewers are learning how to do interviewing of candidates. These are soft skills, and generally speaking, you don't need any haptics. Don't waste time, don't waste money. Just focus on the content, the interpersonal skills. When you're training someone to do process and procedure, a pre-flight check if you're an airplane pilot or a maintenance professional, a pre-operation procedure if you're a medical professional. It's a maybe for haptics. If it's purely a visual task that someone's learning, they just need to see what's around them and react to it, haptics may be a waste of time. If there's any manual skill involved, that's where we start to see the need, the very urgent need for haptic feedback. And when you're training the manual skills of all kinds, that's where it's not only helpful to have haptics, it's critical. It's absolutely critical. You can use realistic haptics to avoid negative training. So if you're training your hands by putting them on a controller and teaching them to pull triggers and push thumb buttons, and then you want the skilled person to go into the field and use their hands, they're going to have to unlearn the buttons and the triggers. That's bad. That's negative training. If they learn the right way from the outset, that's the kind of training you want to do, and that's what realistic haptics can enable. So it's not just electricians or power line workers. It could be medical. It could be just about anything, the thousands of skills that require your hands. That's where adding haptics makes the most sense. A brief case study for you, an example of where this happened. The US Army and the Mayo Clinic and a company in Orlando called ECS, Engineering and Computer Simulations, worked with us to bring haptics to the training of Army soldiers and medics and how to use their hands to do critical things when there are wounded soldiers on the battlefield. Chances are you never want to have to do it, but soldiers often find themselves having to tie a tourniquet on another soldier or do a blood sweep to see where an injury might be, or to decompress a chest that is wounded and is filled with air and breath. And so they counted on us to bring our haptics into this training program that they call the Tactical Casualty Combat Care TC3 simulator. And so the Army really has put 2 years of energy into working with us on this, and we're just wrapping this up. And we moved beyond just the tactical combat training and into surgery. There are Army surgeons who are now testing HaptX as a tool to teach them how to cut into burned flesh and perform an escharotomy. So this has been a really exciting project, and it's just a wonderful example of how realistic haptics can be helpful when manual skills are important. Now let's think about another area that you might be working in. We have a lot of customers who do design. That's one of the other big areas for haptics. So rather than walk you through one by one, I want to bring up all three of the areas that we've seen this be valuable and useful. When you're doing 3D visualization, or you're doing testing of your designs for ergonomics or reach, or especially when you're doing virtual prototyping, all of these are at least a maybe, and sometimes a definite, for adding haptics. On the visualization side, it's so helpful whether you've got a small product or a quarter scale automobile. When you're visualizing it in 3D, to be able to bring your hands into the process and feel these designs, we hear from our customers, is super powerful. And then when you're testing your designs, are they safe? Are they comfortable? Are they beautiful? Are they anything that you expect? Of course, your body's important, and your hands can be everything. So consider that strongly. And maybe most of all, when you are prototyping a product and you want to save time, save money, you don't want to use one of these blank design bucks, if you can help it, where you have to kind of imagine where buttons might be. You want to be able to feel in VR your designs, test them, try them, hate them or fall in love with them, but at least understand how well they work. That's where automakers and so many others can save time and money, avoiding all these prototyping rounds. A wonderful example of this is when Nissan of Japan worked with us to bring our haptic wearables into some of their processes. We started with the Nissan Leaf, and that's the car that, popular electric vehicle, it's been around for a while. We sat with their engineers and figured out how to make every control in that car feel right. Their engineers, our engineers sat and worked together and got that model right. And then they liked it so much, they said, well, let's have you do that on 2 models that we haven't manufactured yet to help us in the design process. And that was a fabulous way for us to put to the test our ability to help an automaker. So we have videos on that and other case studies, and we'd be happy to share more information if you would like. What I want to do is point out the fact that in the wrap world, you may not be able to touch, and it may help you, as it did for our friend MC Hammer. But in the enterprise VR and metaverse world, we hope that you will turn to companies like HaptX for realistic haptics so that you can touch the world. It may make the difference between failure and success. And so with that, before I answer questions, I would like to ask our team to roll our brand new, fresh off the press video on the DK2. Let's take a look at that.
Touch is fundamental to the human experience. Whether we're learning tasks, designing products, or interacting with machinery. HaptX Gloves DK2 is the first product available that can recreate touch in a meaningful way. When you look at an image on a monitor, what you see is nothing more than individual pixels, points of light. But when you pack them together densely enough and change their colors quickly enough, you can recreate anything the eye can see. There's never been a product that can recreate touch in this same way, that can realistically simulate all the key aspects of real-world touch, including tactile, vibration, and force feedback. That's what we've built at HaptX. Through the power of microfluidics, it's now possible to feel anything you can imagine.
HaptX Gloves DK2 is the world's only device with true contact haptics. Each glove features 133 tactile actuators as well as exotendons that apply up to 40 pounds of dynamic force feedback to the muscles, tissues, and joints of your hand. This lets you feel the texture, pressure, and movement of virtual objects, from a light brush to a firm press, and everything in between. Unlike other haptic devices that are limited to symbolic feedback, HaptX gloves physically displace your skin the same way a real object would. HaptX represents a paradigm shift in the way we interact with virtual objects, with profound implications for a range of practical applications.
Could you walk me through the updates on the new design? Yeah, I could. But you know what? It'd actually be easier if I show you.
Okay, yeah.
For manufacturing, designers and engineers can collaborate remotely and create new products without the need for expensive physical prototypes. People in training can build real muscle memory and master critical skills while performing virtual tasks in a safe environment.
Right now, go ahead and get a feel for it in your hands. Inject the probe into the knee.
How does that feel?
It feels real.
When it comes to robotics, it means the ability to control robot hands with your own hands, whether the robot is across the room or across the world. The result is a fully immersive, multi-sensory experience that transports users to another location in real time.
We wanted to make these gloves as easy to develop with as possible, so you can create new haptic content or make your existing VR experiences touchable with HaptX gloves. So we've created a library of haptic templates and an SDK with plugins for Unity and Unreal Engine, which make it easy to get your application up and running. If you're conducting advanced research and development, our low-level API supports open source platforms like ROS.
Think for a second about just how far visual technology has come. From screens with just a few dozen pixels to now ultra-high-definition hyper-realistic displays. And consider what that transformation has meant for our daily lives. That same type of revolution for interactive haptic technology is not only coming, it's already here. Experience it with HaptX Gloves DK2.
Thank you all so very much for coming today. I do appreciate it. I see some good friends in the audience. Thank you for coming today, guys. If anyone has any questions, would love to hear them and answer them.
We have 2 microphones in the aisles here, so step right up if you have any questions for Joe.
AMA, ask me anything.
I can see how the gloves can handle finger-to-finger blockages of movement, right? So if you've got a button and 2 fingers, I can see how you can move them relative to each other. What do you do for a use case where you have your whole arm interacting with an object? How do you convey, that I'm hitting that chair with my hand with the design that you have?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something we think about a lot. What you've identified rightly is there's only so much that the force feedback we apply to your fingers can do to convince you that you are touching something properly, especially if it's big or heavy or requires forces like turning or torque or resting, pushing, lifting. So the transparent answer is with a little bit of weight, we can use our current technology to convey some of that, maybe a few pounds of force. For greater forces, for the feeling of lifting something, pushing something, you'll have to wait until future generations of our tech that we are working quite hard on that will apply more forces to more areas of the body to accomplish that.
Can you do it with gyroscopes?
I don't know. You'll have to come to our office and share those ideas more extensively.
I had a big aha moment when so you started off with a video of a woman with matches, and I guess her nerves had been severed or something, and she was trying to light something without the ability to have tactile feedback. And then you brought it home later on when you were saying that, well, the tactile feedback allows someone to learn something once, and you don't have to retrain yourself. Because so that was a big aha moment for me. I was like, whoa, that's the value proposition I didn't think about before. Was if you are learning something with a controller, the way your hands learn, you're storing some of that knowledge in your hands, or it's not necessarily at the conscious level. Is what I'm trying to say.
I'd like to use that, by the way. You are storing the wrong knowledge in your hands. I don't know if I've ever heard it put quite that way. That's really good. Yes. You don't want to store the wrong knowledge in your hands.
So you don't have to reteach yourself what you don't have to reteach your workers if they learn the right way, a more realistic way, how it's actually going to be like with a more correct simulation. What are some of the other related and big ideas that you discovered through working with these companies like this one, where, you know, like, I don't know if you thought of this like before you were working with some of these companies and having them try the haptic feedback, and are there big other sort of like lessons to what you've...
There are so many, and my clock has hit 0, and I'm sad that I won't be able to go on for about 10 or 15 minutes with all the ones I've learned. I'll try to think of one of them. One of them is not just, one of them is emotional. Having a bit of realistic touch feedback in an experience can deepen the emotion of it dramatically. I have seen people feel so connected to a cute virtual object because they can feel it crawl across their palm, and it's beautiful. So it's not just scientific and enterprise. There's a great connection that we have because of the importance of touch that haptics can convey if you do it realistically.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, so we have to wrap it up with Joe, but maybe you can meet outside and finish your questions and answers there. Thank you so much. Let's give him a round of applause. That was fantastic.
Thank you.